In this tutorial, we're going to look at the 3D tools in Photoshop CS6. And in order to do that, we're going to create some 3D text. And the tools are the same whether you use 3D text or whether you create another type of extrusion or some of the pre-modeled things that are already in Photoshop, or whether you bring in your own model. So we're going to look at how you bring in textures and apply them to 3D models, and also look at how we can change lighting, perspective, and camera angles as well. So in this exercise, we're going to create some text, and then we're going to make 3D text out of it, and then add some other images in the background to give a 3D image that looks like this. Now, the rest of this stuff is flat. The text here is the 3D part, and we add some other stuff in here to make it look more like the concept that we were trying to go for. So with that said, we're going to get started here, and we're going to create a new document, 1600 by 1200, and then we're going to put in some text here. Now with the text tool, I am using this Poplar standard text at 630 point. You can do whatever you want with it. It doesn't matter what the color is because we're going to cover it, and you'll see here with some colors it's going to be easier to see the lighting than it is with other colors. So I'll start with that color there. I don't know, maybe I want a lighter color. It might be easier to see like a yellow, a darker yellow or something. But you gotta have to play around with it and see what it does for you. Okay, so I'm just going to click here, and I want to make sure I have the horizontal type tool. Click, and I am going to type in Earth. Okay, I can move this down, put it in the center, and I'll play around with it later. But now that I have it here, there is a little button up here for 3D and to make it 3D text. So I'm going to highlight everything, and then I'm going to click on 3D. And then what this is going to do is it's going to extrude, and that's what gives the text the 3D look. Now when that happens, it also opens up the 3D panel here, and what we're going to do is go back and forth between the 3D panel and the properties for whatever we're doing with the 3D text here. So the first thing that we're going to kind of play with here is how we move the object around. And if we look up here, we have different 3D modes with the Move tool. If you get the Move tool, these are what you're going to get up here. And this one right here is to rotate the object. So we're going to be able to rotate it from different axes here. And you can see it's on a plane here, and we can see from that plane how we can rotate it in relationship to the plane. We can change the plane view here as well. I'm sorry, if we click on the object, we're just moving the plane. If we click on the object itself, then we're going to move the object along different axes here. So depending on which axis we select, we can move that object whichever way we want with that. And we can also click on those to move it on those axes. Okay. So once we can move the tool. We got some other tools to move it with too. Okay, so depending on where we want to get the tool, most of these are move tools. This is the slide it in and out, and it's just to get you to get whatever position that you want. This one here, I'm sorry, the other one was just slide it in and out. And then this one is kind of a zoom tool, so we can make it bigger and smaller. So once we got it the size that we want, then it's all a question of adding textures and adding lighting, or changing the lighting to where we want it from the direction that we want it. So we're going to look at, in addition to adding the extrusions, or I'm sorry, the textures to the extrusions, which is this part right here, and then the front part, we can also look at beveling the front face as well. So if I click on where it says Earth here, and then go to the Properties Inspector, we're going to see here that we have some different properties we have here. First of all, we have the extrusion depth. So we can make this thinner or thicker if we want to, depending on what we want to do with it. Okay, now once you get it where you want, we can also edit the source from here, so this is kind of important. So if you want to change the text, we want to change the color, we want to change the characters, we can do that here. We can click on the character panel and see the character panel, go to the character panel. And if we click on edit source, it's going to open up the text in a smart object here, what's called a smart object. And once that's edited, then we save it and close it, and the changes will appear. Well, let's go ahead. Let's add a 1 to it. And if I save it, the changes are going to be added to my document. And you can see here it added the 1. So I'm going to go back here, and then I need to just click on that again. And I'm going to edit again, take out the 1. So we're not stuck. We can still edit changes, we can change the type, we can change the size. There's all kinds of things that we can do here. I'm going to save this and get back to the original. So it brings it back to where I wanted it here. And now I'm going to show you a couple other things that you can do here. So right up here, there's a couple tabs here. Okay, this one's deform. If I click on this here, the extrusion depth is here as well, but I can do something else. I can twist. Okay, so this gives you some different effects you can play with. And depending on how fast your computer is, this will be real time or not. If you want to set it back to the original, you can click on reset. And then there's also a taper as well. Okay, so we can taper the text and move it in and out. We can also tell it where we want it to deform. So if we move this area here, it's going to change where the deformation takes place. Okay, so it's all up to you however you want that. Again, we can reset this and get it back to original. Now the other thing that we're going to look at here, we can bend this, we can shear it, depends on what we want to do with it. So it's all up to what we want to do. We can change the horizontal and vertical angle. I'm sorry, I didn't get to that. And the vertical angle as well. Okay, so again, those are things just to play with, and it's up to you how you want to do this for this particular project here. I don't care how you create your 3D text, I just want you to play with it. That's the purpose of the exercise. Okay, so now this is the cap, this area right here, and we can add some more shape to this if we want to. So if we wanted to add some contour here, see, we get like a bevel here if we want to, and we can change how much or how little we want the bevel. We can make a round one if we want. Depends on what you want to do. Again, this is up to you. You can play with this. So I added width here, is what I started with, playing with, and get the width of the bevel here. We can change the angle of the bevel, so it's 45 now, but if I reduce the angle, I get less of a bevel. Okay, so that's the angle of this bevel here. I think 45 was pretty good. And then we can inflate or change the angle of the inflate, so that's how far this is sticking out. So we can make it be stronger. We can have it stick out more. You can see this stick out more. So it's like a balloon. It's like it's blowing it up, and we can change the angle as well. I'm not too particularly keen on these effects here, but again, it's up to you. It's your project here. You can do whatever you want with it. So I'm going to pretty much leave it like that, and I don't know. I don't even know if I'm going to keep that, but we'll leave it there for now and see what we do with it from there. This is coordinates, so it's just where it lies on the project here. The next thing that I want to look at is the lighting. Okay, so I kind of got my bevel here. I kind of got, so we're going to go back here, and in this 3D panel here, we have a couple different things here. We're looking at the mesh right now. One of the things that we're going to look at now is the light. Okay, so once I have this light selected, I can go, and if I get the move tool, I can go and I can move the light. So I hit V to get the move tool, And this is showing me the direction the light's coming from now. So this is my light source, and this is my direction of my light source. I can move this around, and now I'm changing the direction of the light source. Okay, if I want it to come from behind, I can do that as well. And in my finished product, I actually had two different lights. I had one coming from behind, and it's all up to you how you want. And I'm going to show you how to make a couple different lights. So you can see I'm making this totally come from behind here. I can make it come from behind in the top, whatever direction that you want the light coming from. Okay, I think I had an object in there. It was like there was a moon up here, so I had the light shining on that, so maybe I want the light coming from that direction. Okay. So the other thing that we can set here, if we go to the properties, is we can set the shadow, whether we want the shadow to be there or not. We can set the color of the light. We could set the softness and the intensity of the light as well. So if we want the light to be more intense, we can make it more intense. If we want it to be softer, so softer light, a little more specular light. I mean, less specular light, softer shadow there. Okay, we can do that as well. It kind of gives this funky grain look effect there, and I'm not sure why it's doing that now, but it should do it rather smoothly. So, so that's some properties that we have. Now, if we want to add a light, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our 3D panel here, and down here is a tab here to add a light. Now, an infinite light is kind of like a specular light source, and then we can also do a point light and a spotlight. So let's look at adding a spotlight just to play with it, see what it does. So we add a spotlight there, and look, we get this spotlight from the front, and we can move this around in whatever direction that we want it as well. We can see the spotlight and what happens if we move it in and out. We're going to get a different effect there. We can also change the color of the light too. If you don't want a white light, if you want it to look like the sun, so it's going to have an orangish hue maybe. It all depends on what you want to do with it. So that spot there, again, you can move it around with the move tools, change it wherever you want to move it to. If you want to move it up, down, around, in and out. So I'm moving it out farther away here, and that could work for what I did in the other part of the exercise there as well. Or if you don't want to use a spot, we can also add another infinite light source. So again, this is more like the sun kind of light there. I'm going to turn the spot off, and we can move the direction to where we can get some definition in the front there. And then also I can go and I can reduce the intensity of it if it's just too intense and I just wanted a little spotlight, or I'm sorry, a little light here to kind of enhance the bevels here in the front here. So that's it. That's playing with the light there. It's whatever you want to do with it, it's up to you. Again, we can reduce the intensity. And play with the light till you get it right. Okay, that's creating light, that's adding the lighting to it. The next thing we're going to do is look at adding the texture. So we're going to go back over here to our 3D panel. Now we're going to go here to our mesh, or to our whole scene here. And then we're going to select front inflation. So we're going to start out by adding texture to the front here. And if we double click this, it's going to bring us to the properties and where we want to add the texture. And I'm going to click on here, on this little guy here, and I'm going to select load texture. So then I'm going to select the image that I want to use for the texture, and in this case it's going to be moss. I can use just about any image that I want to. You can see it added it to the front here, but it didn't add it to the bevel. So one of the things I can do to add it to the bevel easily, so if I want to copy this texture to the bevel here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to my tool panel here, and I'm going to select the 3D material eyedropper tool. So what I'm going to do then is sample this here. So I'm going to click on this material here and then hold down the Alt key and click on the bevel. And it adds that material to the bevel. Okay, so now I have this green mossy thing on the front and around my bevel as well. I don't really like that bevel, but we'll go with it. So the next thing I'm going to do is select the extrusion material here. So this is the part that sticks out, if you remember. And then again, I'm going to load the texture. I'm going to select this mossy grass here. And it loads it in here, but it's kind of not the way I want to do it. So I'm going to have to play around with it a little bit to get the scale correct, is what I need to do now. The scale, and we do that in the UV properties here. So we go to UV properties, I click this little guy here, went to UV properties, and what we're going to change here is the U and the V scale. So I'm going to pull this all the way up to 1000%, or close to, and look, it stretches it out and it makes it more realistic looking. And I think I made this a little smaller too. We'll drag this down to 75 or so. And this looks much more realistic here now. Okay, so we can see this now. We can click off of the 3D layer here and click on the background here and see how our text looks with the bevel and with the texture applied and the lighting. So you can see here that I probably need to play with the lighting a little more, and I didn't really like the bevel. I mean, I really liked it much better on this image here where I probably had less bevel and the lighting was a little better here, so I moved the lighting around, made the lighting a little softer. So again, it's all about playing with it till you get it where you want it. So once we have this here, we're pretty much ready to go with the 3D. We're just going to start adding the other pieces to it. And this is stuff that you guys have done before. So I'll show you pretty much what I did in this image here, but it's kind of up to you what you want to do with the background. I'm not requiring that you do anything special with the background. But what I did here was, and I'll give you these images so that you can use them if you want to, is I placed these two images in the background here. So I placed these guys here. Let me turn off these so you can see what's in the background here. So I use these two images here. And what I did was, if you see, this image goes all the way here, and then this image here also went up and was a rectangular image. And so what I did to blend the two together was I created a mask, and with the layer mask I used the gradient there to blend those two together. So with those blended, then I positioned my text on top of there in the position that I wanted it, what I thought looked best. And there's some other stuff I could have done here as well, but that's what I did. I thought the edges of the text looked a little too hard, so I got the clone stamp tool and I cloned around it with actually a different type of grass here, and then I changed the color of that grass with my hue saturation to make it look a little more realistic. So it's not so hard, it looks a little fuzzier, and that's kind of the look I was going for, but it's all up to about what you want to do. And then I took a couple other images here. So I had, well, here's my full image here of this one, and here's this one, and I'll give you guys these ones too, but I'd prefer you guys use your own. I got this image here of a flower, and I got this image here of a butterfly, and I cut those out, and then I added those here as, let's see, where is this one here? Right here is my little flower here that I took out, and all I did was add a mask to make it blend in here, and then I added a shadow. So I created a shadow by duplicating the layer and then selecting the pixels in the layer and then filling it with black and then reducing the opacity. So that's a way to make a shadow. And then I added this other picture, which is, where is it? My butterfly here. And then I added another shadow on that butterfly here, and I used the transform tool to deform the shadow till I thought it looked realistic there, and I used some levels to make it a little darker there. And then I added some more text up here. Conserve the earth. So that's my finished product there, and I tried to make all the lighting look as realistic as possible, try to get everything to blend as well as possible. But mainly what I want you to do for this exercise is to play around with the 3D type and see what you come up with. And again, with all these projects, you guys have learned this already with the midterm. You should create a concept before you do this. And then that concept is going to enable you to be able to communicate something rather than just learning the tool for the tool's sake. Because nobody's going to hire you to do that. People are going to hire you to communicate a message. And having the tools at your disposal without having to think about how to use those tools is very helpful, but you still got to concept this stuff. You got to create a concept and you got to communicate a message. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this.